here we are. Welcome along to a bonus episode of CubeCast today. We're going to find out who's around today. We're going to find out who's ready for a bonus episode on a Monday morning for me, Sunday afternoon for those of you in the US. What is it for the UK? Something else in the UK, I don't know. But we're here for a bonus episode today. We're going to have a chat to our guest, Michael Chai, in just a second, who I'll bring in very, very soon. What's up, Ezra? First in the chat. Welcome along. Yeah, I'm interested to see who actually comes along today, hey. Interested to see. Ephemica's here. Got some time before the Super Bowl. Are we competing with the Super Bowl? Is that what I've done? What an idiot. Is that what's happening? Okay, well, never mind. It's what it is. It's what it is. If we're up against the Super Bowl, then that's what we're up against. Okay. We're all set, I'm pretty sure, for the thing. I'm going to bring in our guest now, Michael Chai, who's waiting patiently in the wings. Hello, Michael. Welcome along. How are ya?
Hey, Mike. I'm good. Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
No worries. So Michael is... should we call you CEO of the PSL, of the Premier Speedcubing League? What are you working with?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Decision making, right? In the very primitive phases, but essentially CEO.
Very, very cool. Lovely to have you here. So the reason we're going to talk is because the PSL is recently announced, is upcoming in March, is something new. And it's caught a bit of, what's it caught? It's caught a bit of, it's stirred up a bit of conversation anyway. That's what it's done. And we're gonna go through some of the hard questions, or possibly ignorant questions. Who knows? We'll get to them. The people have been asking in and around the community. Some of them are completely valid, as we'll get to. Some of them need a bit more explaining, but it's all good. We're gonna get round to it. Thank you, Dave. The Super Bowl starting in 2 hours. Cool. The Weird Rugby starts in 2 hours, everyone. So that's good to know. Hello, James, tuning in from Michigan as well. Official Timmy in the chat there. So here's how things are going to work today. We are going to today's going to be divided into I'm not going to say halves, but two parts. The first part we're going to talk about is your relationship, Michael, to the WCA. You've now left the WCA. You were a board member, then you resigned. We're going to talk through a bit of that stuff. Then we're going to talk about, in the second part, the PSL itself, the Premier Speedcubing League, and try and answer some questions that we might not have got super clear on in the other interviews you've done. Because you did a video with Speedcubing TV, who is the broadcast partner,
did, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And also, I've just seen him sneak into the chat here as well. Manu from Cubers Live, who you spoke to as well. Right. He's asking the big questions this morning. Who have we got winning the Super Bowl?
So personally for me, I got to go Eagles.
Okay,
I just don't want to see. I don't want to see the Chiefs get a three-peat, man. Like, I love Patrick Mahomes. He's already the GOAT, and like people who know me, like, know that I already believe Tom Brady to be the GOAT. Don't know if do you watch American football?
I haven't got
at all?
a clue, man. I haven't got a clue.
Okay, yeah. So Tom Brady is like undisputed GOAT, and straight from me. But even I'm watching Patrick Mahomes. I'm like, God, this guy, he has it all. Like, and I don't want to give him all. Like. I think it's good to have Saquon get a ring, shove it in the face of the Giants. Okay. If you're listening and you understand American football, you'll know what Saquon went through. So I'm
just gonna have to take your word for all of that. I have no idea. My understanding is that the Eagles is Taylor Swift's boyfriend's team. That's the limit of my knowledge, right?
Yeah. I don't hate Taylor Swift at all. Don't get me wrong. I love her music.
Don't come at the Swifties on the stream. Let's not do that.
No, I just Patrick Mahomes can't have it all, man. Okay. That's really it. Like, if he gets a three-peat, he might pass Michael Jordan. Like, that's the territory we're going at right now.
Okay.
Yeah. You know Michael Jordan, right? Our triplet share the same name.
Right. Well, I know Michael Jordan from basketball. which is why I'm just keeping quiet and
Yeah,
waiting to see how this goes. So there's a
it's
Michael.
just the greatest athlete of all time. Like
Okay.
he's in Messi, Michael Jordan territory type stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. All right. So, speaking TV, reckon that the Lions should have won it all. I'll take your word for that. Fi Kid,
No
come.
opinion.
Fi Kid, a man who's taken his claim as a Swifty. Love to hear it. You can't come
Yeah.
online and go against the Swifties. That's not smart. That's not strategically a smart move. Okay,
No.
so I thought it would be a really good idea to start by just saying who we are and what our connections to and allegiances to the PSL are. Do you feel like you've introduced yourself, or do you want to have another swing at it?
I'll introduce myself real quick
Sure.
in case anyone's just tuning in or it's like further confused. So my name is Michael Chai, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Premier Speedkeeping League. And yeah, it's just been this has been a project that I was interested in pursuing, even when it wasn't fully fleshed out. Like I think all of us have had ideas of what the future of keeping looked like, and that's where I was all like daydreaming, thinking to myself, what would this look like? And it was just an interesting opportunity to kind of like get things going. And yeah, I'm just here, as you said, to answer any questions. I hope the questions that you prepared are, uh, what's the right phrasing of it? I hope the questions that you prepared do justice of the community of what they're asking, right? I think that's the best way to say it. Part of the reason that you see me online, I don't think I'm a very marketable person, first off. I don't think I have any utility in marketing myself in the league. I think I'm the farthest thing from it. But I do understand that there are some, important questions that I can definitely help answer, and that's part of like the whole approach, to this. I think reaching out to people if they have any questions and concerns, and I know you reached out to me, and yeah, so ready to answer any questions.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we spoke candidly earlier in the week. We had an off-air sort of chat when and you basically were just like, yeah, no question is off limits, pretty much. And I was like, are you sure about that? Well, let's find out. Let's find out. And since then,
Yeah.
obviously, I've streamed and made a video about a particular post in Cubix's Friends, which I thought was just a little bit. It was just coming a bit hard at you, and I thought that was a little bit unfair. I don't really know you at all, but yeah, I guess so. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike, host of CubeCast and owner of speedcube.co.nz, the biggest little speedcube store in the world, here in New Zealand. My connection to the PSL is I don't have one. I just want to watch cubing on TV. Really, that's all I want to do. So I don't really have a personal connection, just an emotional, I suppose you could say, an emotional connection. That said, I would love to partner in some way with. So just for clarity, I would like to partner in some way, and we've talked about that off air, and we'll talk to that in the future, I'm sure as well. So I do have kind of a potential future stake. Currently, I have no stake whatsoever, except that I would like to watch some speed cubing. Thank you very much. I want to watch fast speed cubers go head to head against each other.
Hmm.
I think that's about everything I need to disclaim. One thing I would like to sort of get you to talk to at the start that I think is important and I think has been missed, and I'm not sure if it's in your interviews. I can't remember because I can't remember things.
Sure.
But we've
They're
talked
long
about it.
interviews. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
No worries.
your philosophy that a philosophy that we share in what we're doing, in so much as how I approach the podcast and about how you're approaching the league is kind of nothing is sacred and everything is bendable to change. Do you want to talk about that sort of philosophy you're taking in there?
Yeah, so you're right. And I have talked about it, but I also think it's important to reiterate that because that's what I hope to be the greatest asset of the PSL, right? Um, just not being resistant to certain concepts, and really, really being able to create a healthy feedback loop, I think is the right phrase. So first off, you're right. Nothing's really off the table. So when we launch a product, I remember you said this. When we're launching a product, we're guessing at what people are looking for, and we're blending that with what we want to kind of see the end result look like. So it's some version of compromise, because obviously consumers might have asks X, Y, and Z, and then the people who are trying to make that product come to life will run into hurdles. So they have to make compromise X, Y, and Z, right? So the product in itself is already a second deviation away from what the hopes and dreams are, from what we want to achieve out of the league, which is, we hope success, we hope it connects to the mainstream, etc. Right? And I could answer any of those questions later on, but things such as format, things such as regulations, um, even to like the bare bones like logistics of like operations of how the comp is run, and details like that, all that is subject to change. And really, the important thing to get out of that is we need to have a change for a great reason, right? Um, and I would say like the format is probably like the biggest one that people have wanted to see changed, probably to be more consumer friendly. I think it's been well established that the current format makes it very difficult for a non-cuber to look at. But even the format is TBD, right? There's going to be, hurdles throughout the way, and we're going to try out different methods of achieving something that's enjoyable to participate in, but also compete in, participate or watch. I don't know how much you're going to ask specific details, so maybe I will let my future answers kind of tell make this part come to life. So I'll be answering questions, and you'll hear me like, "Oh, that's something we might do,"
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
That's likely, to be honest, given that I know what I'm gonna get into. But okay, so as I said, we're gonna talk about kind of WCA stuff first to give the background, because there's a big question about where the leagues come from, and there's questions around why you left the WCA early, and I think some of those are connected, so I think they're worth exploring. So like my first question is quite general though. It's just like, how are you feeling first of all? Now that you've seen a bit of, there's been some pushback in places like Kubix's friends. Not to put too fine a point on it. Has that been surprising, or did you expect some of it? Because you've been in the community a lot longer than I have, and I'm possibly quite naive about that kind of stuff. I did see Red Bull come and go, but I like, how are you feeling after seeing some of the stuff that's been asked fairly and in some cases unfairly? Where are you?
Yeah, I would say no, I'm not disappointed or anything like that. I think when I was about to go public with the league, there was always that understanding that there would be pushback. And I'm okay with that, right? So, what a lot of people have to understand is, um, when there's criticism headed towards your way, you need to hear why the criticism exists, not what the criticism is per se. So I understand that a lot of the criticism comes from people that have a genuine love for cubing. And that is really why it exists. And they're providing that critique because they want to essentially still love what they love. That's okay. And I encourage it and I understand that. So I can't take it personal, right? I have to understand where they're coming from and then just sort of move forward with, concepts, ideas, and innovations. Really, the innovation that we were mentioning earlier, I have to continuously improve the league because I don't know exactly what people want. I know what the majority of people, I think, based on who I talk to, want, but I don't know what everyone wants.
Mm.
And I'll do my best to really, make it right. But I think we're in the right direction because a good amount of criticism is healthy, in order to move forward and have a great product. I think is the best way to phrase that. It's totally fine.
Yeah, cool. I ask because I find it hard sometimes. It's really difficult when you put yourself out there, and then you can immediately sort of disappear into the imposter space, the imposter syndrome space, and just be like, oh no, oh no. Everyone hates it. What am I doing?
Yeah. I guess, that's an inevitable feeling, right? But staying grounded in understanding like why this is important helps a lot,
Yeah,
right?
cool.
So the why that they provide the criticism is the why that I'm doing this, and I also have to be flexible on how I get to the end goal.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? And that's why we're all doing anything. Like, why are we all doing anything in the cubing space? It's because we all love cubing and we all want cubing to grow, and we're all just doing our different ways of making it happen. I'm sure everything
Yeah,
that we're
yeah,
all doing has a place. Okay, so a big one that we'll just dive straight into is your tenure on the board at the WCA. So you resigned mid-term. You resigned 18 months into a 3-year term, is my understanding. You also
yeah,
resigned from your position as a team leader and a delegate as well. Um, and then not long after that, that was in October, and now we're in February talking about the PSL. So there's an obvious question there, or there's an obvious conspiracy there. You quit the WCA to do the PSL. Like what? What is the truth of what happened there, from the horse's mouth, so to speak?
sure. So the PSL. So I used the phrase founder very delicately because there's a reason why I didn't introduce myself as the founder per se. So long story short, yeah, so I left my position at the board, and I think what a lot of people might conveniently like what the answer to is if the sliding controversy like just pushed me off the edge. No, that's a long story short answer to that first. Um, so I left the board because I thought it would be an interesting opportunity to just try new things. I was really, really focused at work. So I was actually working towards, so I actually just completed a move up to, because I got a promotion at work essentially. So it was something that I was focusing on a lot of different things at the time. The PSL was actually a project that was not founded by me per se. So I've had many conversations with, Tyson Mao,
I know the name. I don't know him personally.
the co-founder of the WCA.
Yeah.
So of just kind of doing this, extracurricular thing and project, because we're on good terms. And then he reached out to me while we were still on the board about pursuing, something more interesting, right? And then that's complicated, right? So, I thought it would be interesting, but it wasn't necessarily up to me to take that role. But I also thought things in terms of like how internally the board operated, it felt like a good time to go. Yeah, there were like little disagreements here and there, but it was just a good time. The reason being is because I thought it would be best for me to leave and then kind of settle down real quick. I thought that proposal from Tyson was a lot, I guess, is to say the least.
Can I just clarify
Um,
what the proposal exactly from Tyson was?
of a high level speedkeeping league.
As part of the WCA?
Uh, no. So essentially, it was a project that he wanted to do outside of the WCA.
Okay.
But he reached out to me because I'm someone that he knew. I thought it would be in the best interest. Is first off, it was just time for me to leave. Secondly, I told him that this is best if I'd love to work with you, but it's probably best if you have a conversation with the WCA first because I thought that'd be a really great opportunity.
Of
And all of
course.
that has sort of intermingled. Like, if you think about it, the time is not that long. So, conversations, I don't know where the conversations went, but long story short, um, from what I understand, the WCA and Tyson didn't end up working together. And then I was again approached, and I just decided to take it in January to do something new and innovative because I had just settled my move, doing my stuff, and yeah, scrambled to get a product out. That's also why you might notice there are some things that might feel rushed. if you think so, because that's truly what it was.
Yeah, right. Okay. So left the board in October, started working on PSL in January is the timeline.
Yeah, late January.
Late January. Wow. Yeah, that is not a lot of time. But then, okay, so
Yeah.
because I suppose uh, I suppose the big thing was people are just one of the big feedbacks was it's unofficial. I wish it could be linked to I wish it could be WCA recognized, but is that asking a bit much at the moment of the WCA to recognize another format that's not average of five?
Uh, it's a good question. I don't think it's a bad thing per se. Um, I will say that different formats have been explored. So what people don't know, well, I think if you were in the WCA long enough, you would have known. But the WCA explored in the regulations, I want to say back in 2021, of like a head-to-head format, and it was rejected by staff members. I don't quote me on that. I think.
Okay.
Um, yeah, you should deep dive into it. If someone in the chat is an OG cuber who might be a part of WCA staff, double check that. But I think that happened. I do know that at least a proposal in regulations did not move forward very far into the regulation cycle. And that proposal hits a lot of feedbacks, right? So, as far as if it's preposterous for this to be a part of the WCA, no, in fact, quite the opposite. Like I said, I thought it would be best if the WCA had the opportunity to take on this project first. What I will say is like, it feels like it's very fast, but there was like a very clear steps taken, advised side by side with Tyson. So the WCA could have quickly turned around and done this as well. It just so happens that if they're not going to do it, why not me?
Okay. I saw an interesting comment. I can't remember if it was in Cubix's friends, or if it was in the comments of my video. But somebody said or suggested, and I think they were staff. They suggested that the WCA is working on something like high level, like a high performance league, or like a what are we saying? Like a premier league, like a top level league, uh, and that we just had to wait around. We had to trust and wait. And I was like, well, that's not satisfactory. First of all, was my response to that. But um, is that something that you know? Oh, well, you wouldn't be able to talk about it if you did, I suppose. Like, are they
No, I
exploring
mean,
other avenues for top tier cubing?
so what you'll learn from me is like I'm more than welcome to like share my experience on the board, but I'm going to, completely respect that they have a lot of projects that they're working on,
Oh,
and
of course.
I wouldn't be able to confirm like anything what they're doing.
Yeah.
You can make assumptions. So like I can tell you like there's assumptions. Like obviously, I think a big deal in the WCA right now is like handling incidents. I think like competition in person incidents, stuff like that. Like that's a big conversation. I think if you didn't think the board was talking about that, I think you'd be a little bit, out of touch. They obviously care, or we obviously, cared at the time. But there's just a lot of things that I'm sure, the board, they love the idea of high level cubing, right? If I didn't think that they would love the idea, I wouldn't share with them the opportunity to do that project with Tyson. Because at the time I was in a different phase, kind of like focusing on my career, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I wouldn't be able to confirm that.
No, for sure.
I could just, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on.
They
I'm
are
on.
working very hard. Yeah, I would say that.
I know that. Yeah, they definitely work hard.
Yeah,
I've made my position clear where I'm just like, get a CEO. That's my whole kind of vibe. It's just like, get a CEO, make your lives easier, put
yeah.
someone in front of operations. That's another conversation, which I'm sure there's problems involved with it. But
I think
I've always worked on boards with
down the
CEOs.
road, yeah, down the road, like as time passes, I'm sure we can definitely talk about like fun things we'd like to see implemented into the WCA. I'm sure that's no harm.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean the WCA is working on stuff, and I can't really say what they are and aren't on
Yeah,
at
no,
this
for
moment.
sure. No,
To
obviously. I
in
guess
their respect, yeah.
we'll just have to sit and wait like that commenter suggested. We just have to trust and sit
Well,
and
I
wait.
like the. I heard, or I think Dan made his um, application public,
Yeah, he
and I
did.
really like the idea. I really like the idea of trying to connect with the community. So I hope to see maybe more progress on that
Mm.
because that'd be very interesting.
I actually when I went through Dan's application, I made a video on it. I made the call out then. It's just like, Dan, there's always a space for you here if you want to connect the WCA to the community. Then right here if you want to go. You know, it's a small part of it. My audience isn't huge, but the opportunity is there for you. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so timeline we've discussed. I had a question. Someone reached out to me personally on Discord. This one's relatively
Sure.
spiky, and it was like kind of out of the blue for me. I was like, oh, okay,
You're good. No worries.
interesting. So you have been accused, Michael Chai. You have been accused
Okay.
of trying to start or fund initiatives, I'm quoting, using WCA funds. And there was no evidence given to me about it because it couldn't be shared. Apparently it exists but couldn't be shared. But
Sure.
they spoke about something specific, which was Timebase, that
Okay.
you circumvented WIC regs to use the WCA funds to fund Timebase with the intention of making money personally, was the accusation. I'll give that to you
Okay.
to talk to.
Sure. So Timebase, uh, in case anyone is unfamiliar with Timebase as a project, it's basically Timebase is a project where there is like a display that is able to connect to the cloud, and you're able to automate a result intake from stopping the timer and basically eliminating the need for paper scorecards. It's a work in progress project. Now, when I heard about it, I was very intrigued by it, and I thought it was something that'd be really cool to explore. So, first off, to answer the question in the room, no, there is no incentive to profit from Timebase. I'm not a part of it. I do think it'd be great for the community, because one thing to keep in mind is that the community is looking for a speed stacks alternative. Anyone in the chat telling me otherwise?
There's no one in the
Cool. I'll
chat saying you
continue.
otherwise.
So,
Can confirm.
exactly. Can confirm. So, just wanted to put that out there. So, let me phrase it in a way. Okay, so let's say, no, actually, I'm not going to beat around the bush, and then I'll explain after because people will just think it's a workaround. So, we, West Coast Cubing funded the production of the first displays of Timebase because we thought it would be really, really cool for the community to potentially have something in this. But that's it. We're not looking for profit out of it. We're not going to get profit out of it, right? And if they do whatever they want with it, we don't get incentives for it. We were just helping jumpstart the project because, you know, it helps. Every little bit helps. So that's pretty much it. We funded the production of Timebase,
So that
and
was
there is
what
nothing else to it.
specifically West Coast Cubing funded the production,
Yeah.
or okay. So it wasn't WCA exactly. It wasn't WCA funds.
Well, that's where I understand where people might come from. The registration fees came from somewhere, right? The money came from somewhere. They come from registration fees. What we thought was the right thing to do is we were going to spend money in a cubing product that we would hope benefit the entire cubing community. So it's the same idea as if you're an RO spending money on like a Google ad, for example, to have your RO kind of be in the public face towards like non-cubers, for example. Um, does that directly, benefit the cubing community? It's up for you to debate, but it's basically like investing money in a product that you hope you'll see a great return into the community from. Is that a fair analogy? I don't know if that's a fair
I think
analogy
so. It makes sense. Um,
because there's a startup cost to building. You had to like build the time-based displays by hand,
yeah.
essentially. So we funded that. Nowhere were we going to get any profit out of it. Where I was going to go before people thought I was going to like give a workaround answer. So that's the answer. Where I was going to go was, people have their own opinions about, time based and stuff like that. But if you think about it, if SpeedStacks really is who they are, you were probably going to end up with one of the Chinese companies potentially trying to monopolize the market in the future, right? You already
Mm-hmm.
see them trying to do that. Qi displays, for example, right? Like
Yeah.
that's one thing that they're trying to do. And you see these companies coming out with their own timers. So a lot of people complain that, is that, what is the purpose of Timebase? Like, does it do anything good? Can it be used across the world? Is it cheap to make? Stuff like that. Who is it benefiting? But no one's asking the question like, if you pay for a Qi display, who is it benefiting? If you pay for a Qi timer, who is it benefiting? The point is this is a product that's supposed to benefit cubers and specifically benefit staff members to eliminate the extra scorecard thing. I don't know what Timebase wants to do with like in the future. Let's say they're in full production mode, stuff like that. We have no ties to that. We just wanted to help start up the first set, like first few displays, and that's about it.
Okay. Couple of questions coming in the chat. Prosta's pushing back saying, no,
Sure.
wait, he hasn't answered the question. Did he use the WCA funds? Well, I think you said you used West Coast cubing funds, but that did come from comp registration. So I suppose
Sure.
you could say that the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But I would like to see the reg. I'd like someone to put in front of me where it says that you can't in the WIC regs or guidelines or whatever, because it wasn't for personal.
Well, I hope that answered your question. Yeah, I hope that answered your question. Look, West Coast cubing, we thought it would be beneficial to the community if Timebase were successful.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So because then that's an alternative.
We wanted to try out a project.
Because then we're actually, if it is successful, then you're actually paying cubers to make the new SpeedStacks alternative. Because like you said, if you're paying Qi, you're just paying another company. If you're paying Moyu, you're just paying another company.
I didn't say that. Like, for example,
I misunderstood.
For example, the Timebase people could do it for free, for all I care. Like, they could do it for free. Like, maybe they don't get a dime out of it. But let's say it's a successful product that, let's say, the WCA, wants to support it, right? Well, that's a win.
Yeah.
The cubing community wins. Does it not?
Wabadaba in the chat has just put Code of Ethics 1.5, profit acquired from a competition must not be kept for personal gain by the organizer or the delegates and should be put towards the benefit of the community. There we are. That lines up for me. If you
ever see Timebase, look, if Timebase, whatever they decided to, let's say either it's for free, let's say whatever, they take the project and run away with it, I'm not able to touch it. It's not mine. I just really think it'd be great for the community to see, and I believe in the project. That's it.
Peter Barker in the chat, there are staff members behind Timebase, which makes it sketchy. Yes, but I'm going to come in as a big board member, dad, powerhouse here and just be like, that's actually fine as long as you have good conflict of interest.
Can I interject real quick?
If conflict of interest registers. Yes, of course.
So there is an ideal world that exists, and I understand people think that's like a weird, like it's a weird dynamic, and yeah, conflicts of interest, you got to declare it, stuff like that. But I think you got to understand that there's a lot more similarities between projects than people realize. And yeah, staff members are involved in Timebase. Did you know that the WCA website redesign is by WCA staff members?
But they were paid, Michael Chai. That's corrupt. Kick them all out.
Just saying, like just look.
No, it makes perfect sense.
By the way, like if I was in the interest of spilling beans, I would love to have conversations, right? But what I'm saying is what the WCA did is right. Don't get me wrong. They should. Absolutely should. Pay the cubers to do a great job on our product. But people are nitpicky.
Yeah.
They like to see specific things, unfortunately, for specific people, by specific people. So look, we can like stay silent for 5 minutes and let the chat interject for that if you'd like. But I totally love a conversation.
I think that it makes total sense because the people most passionate about cubing and the people most passionate to develop cubing are also quite often the same people who are passionate enough to be delegates and staff members. Like it's a fairly obvious and expected crossover, in my opinion. And that's why I come back to just like if I'm just coming off governance, just declare those conflicts of interest. That's fine. That's what a conflict of interest register is for. I actually haven't found one. I wonder if there is one. I'm sure there must be one, but I haven't found it yet. So if someone can find it and link it to me, then I'd love to see it.
There is a conflict of interest form.
Yeah,
because I had to fill it out.
yeah,
But it's cool.
because it's pretty like basic board stuff that has to be completed and it has to be publicly available
It's not just a conflict of interest for board. It's like if you're a staff member.
for staff
I
member. Yes, sorry.
remember, yeah, I think when I was a delegate, I had to fill it out.
Yeah,
I don't remember where to find it anymore. But yeah, it exists beyond just being on the board. So look, and I get it. And I get it where people like think like that's like immoral. But the truth is that's just telling half the story.
yeah.
So we
Whether
can again would love to see if anyone is interested in following that.
a really good question. Are they going to use Timebase at PSL?
Are we going to use Timebase at PSL?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we're exploring options. So
I wonder if that's got.
I mean, I would love to incorporate technology, but if you think about it, okay, to be fair, I think when you think about how Timebase works, it doesn't necessarily work in our format. Tag,
yeah,
scramble, tag, and then we're also head to head, and it's all like stationary, and Timebase is written from what I understand in a way that is not super compatible with that. But I would love to incorporate that technology into the league. Obviously, that's not easy work, but I'm having conversations. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I would love to see something super cool come out of it. And I think it's a labor of love almost in a way. Like there has to be like a level of motivation to kind of see something like that come to life because you don't get to. There's no rewards to reap out of this, right? So
yeah,
it takes a lot of time to do that. So I wouldn't blame them if we wouldn't be able to figure it out. But I would love to incorporate tech into the future.
James is asking, do you know what the state of Timebase is now? Just before we move on to PSL itself, haven't seen any further developments since All Stars.
Do I know? Dude, if you know me personally, you know that I don't know a lick of code. I don't know. Like that. I don't know. Truthfully, I have no idea like where that code lives. I mean, I have like asked for like potential partnership and like exploring specific things, but again, ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
Right. As far as how much they've developed since the last time they've had it, I wouldn't be able to speak to that answer. My assumption is I haven't heard too much, so probably either nothing has happened or everything has changed.
Or something in between.
Well, when someone goes like dark like that for a while, usually it's because it's just quiet or it's a lot of things happening, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be able to know.
Okay, I'm gonna move the conversation on to the sort of the PSL itself.
Wait.
The premier. Sorry, one more.
Hold on. Any more questions about?
From the
Because I
chat?
understand this is a topic that people are curious about, Timebase. So I completely understand. But I hope that analogy painted the picture very clearly.
I think it worked for me. I'm noticing it's an interesting numbers thing happening today on stream because there's a lot of people listening. I got 34 in the room, which is that's like a decent episode of CubeCast, but not many people chatting. So there's a lot of people just listening and taking it all in, is what I'm observing at the moment.
Well, and I understand this is why this is important. This is why you hosting it is super important, right? I think people are curious, and that's fair.
Yeah. Okay. What I
We
would
can
like,
move on.
what
Sorry,
I would like
let's
to
just
do. No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm sure people are gonna come in and with questions and mess up my edit later, and then I'm gonna have to actually work on it and think about it instead of just chopping it in half, because that's what you do to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The PSL. So
Yeah.
we're in talking about Timebase. We've been talking about money, but in terms of the PSL. Premier Speedcubing League, most of the questions or criticism I've seen coming has been focused around just that, around money. For big question, I think is very important to get out there is that can you confirm that all staff working on PSL are getting paid?
Yeah. So organization team, they're for the sake of how this analogy will work, they're contracted teams. Yeah, so they're all paid. The internal PSL staff team, paid. Actually, I'm the only one that's not paid
You're currently unpaid.
for the foreseeable, indefinite future.
Okay. That's pretty
The
clear.
reason I can explain that, and the reason is it's very simple. For the PSL to be successful, I'm not the one to make it successful. It's the team that works on the projects that will make it successful. I probably don't have enough people on the PSL staff team. I will need better, stronger, larger organization teams, right? In order to bring people in, if I'm going to go by my philosophy, I have to pay them. So everyone's going to eat before I eat.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty clear. I don't really have much pushback. That was a pretty binary question that was asked. And that's a fairly binary answer. So we'll take that. Secondly, okay, this is more about pricing now. People
Sure.
have suggested, and I think this might be fair actually. They've suggested that the pricing is confusing.
Yeah, I
Es-
know. Yeah, I know where you're going with that.
Especially people have been talking about miners having to pay more than regular competitors, which is
Yeah.
not true. This is your opportunity to clarify that once and for all.
Yeah. Okay. So one, I would like to acknowledge that I appreciate that you're saying that it's not true, uh, because I understand that you spent some time looking into it and you realized why that's happened. I will caveat this. This entire conversation is based on a philosophical premise: is if people who are not cubers should be paying for entrance fees. And if you think that free plus ones are just a thing, or free plus infinites, bring your whole family, they don't need to pay. If that's your philosophy, I won't be able to win any argument around that. Because my philosophy in this project will be, look, if you're taking up space that could be dedicated to another cuber in the space, could be dedicated, like every venue has a max capacity, right? So let's say if I switch to PSL from a ballroom, if we went to an auditorium, there's a seat in each hall. If you're just a spectator, do you pay for that seat? It's a great question, right? Are you following so far?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure if anyone else is following. That's the philosophical difference. That if you don't understand that, then there's no conversation to be had. But I'm operating that. Look, every person in the room has to pay, and that's just what it is. So if we're doing that, that's the reason why the ticket model is what it is. And I'll explain that briefly. Again, you understand why. I'll acknowledge that it's confusing and I need to like sort of rework it. But the minor ticket is it's a competitor ticket with a discounted spectator ticket because we're not allowing a minor to enter our event alone. Or we're going to make a very clear disclaimer that we do not expect you to be alone. Because what happens a lot in WCA competitions, if you're a parent listening, I really hope you're not the one doing this.
I am a parent listening, but I
What
know what you're going to say.
if you're a parent and you drop off your kid at a WCA competition, bro? Like we're not daycare. Like we're not your daycare, but it happens so much, and there's a lot of liability involved, right? So that's really it. We're expecting every minor to be accompanied to deal with situations, right? And that's the importance of it. So it is a competitor ticket with a discounted spectator ticket included. Now, if you're plus 18, we don't expect you to come with anyone unless you want to. And then if that's the case, the spectator ticket is available for you. Um, but I acknowledge it's a confusing pricing model. Is it less confusing than charging like is it less confusing than just clearly putting every ticket the same, and then if you're a guardian, you got to pay the same ticket as other spectators? It's probably less confusing that way too. Actually, you know what's really funny?
Sure.
The Timon versus Yihang clash. Did
Cube
you read
Clash,
the
yeah, yeah.
fight? Yeah, that's what they're doing. Every ticket is the same, and you have to buy a separate ticket for your parent.
Yeah. I was gonna come
So
to Cube Clash and the reaction to that later, for sure. But yeah.
and and look, it's totally within their right to do so because we're probably aligned on the same point. Like, hey, if you're taking up space, like, come on, we could have another competitor. We could do a new booth if we're taking up less space. Like, there's just things that we need to be considerate of. These have max capacities, and we're working on tight budgets.
It's a fairly simple model
So
for Cube Clash, I suppose, because it's essentially a show. There's not competitor tickets. It's just a show, you know? So
yeah, exactly.
they're just selling
But
seats.
I acknowledge it's confusing, but the only reason that I structured it in this way was the very clear outline that minors will not be accompanied alone.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And that goes in with your code of conduct, which I haven't actually made a video on. Maybe I should. Maybe I need to read through that one as well. But there's very explicit stuff in the code of conduct that people have to accept to compete and to spectate as well, I imagine, right?
Compete, spectate, staff.
Yeah, okay, cool. Explicit stuff in the code of conduct around safety of children. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
that goes hand in hand with that stuff. Yeah, no, in parenting circles, it's known as a dump and run. You do it at birthday parties quite a lot. And some people do it at my kids' like ballet classes and things. The old dump and run. They just dump the kid and then they're away. You're not providing a childcare service, and neither are the WCA. Actually, while we're on it, Brandon in the chat,
Yeah.
as an organizer, I've had parents explicitly ask me if it's okay to just drop off their kid at WCA Comp for the day. It's very weird. It is a bit weird. I think it happens universally. It happens here in New Zealand, I think, to an extent as well. Parents kind of assume that there are responsible adults in charge, and that's a big assumption to make sometimes.
Yeah, and I think about it, and I'm trying to be nice, but I realize that when you're a parent for a child, you're looking for that day alone with like your significant other,
I
or just you just need some peace and quiet.
I can
It's just, this
validate
is a
that.
really easy way to do that. Yeah, this is a really easy way to do it, and I totally acknowledge it. But it's just, look, a lot of things happen. A lot of things can happen, and I just want to be. Yeah, you can ask questions about the code, by the way, if you want.
I would want to honestly. I would want to go through it again and probably do a video on it and just go through it. So far,
Sure.
I like the code. I have done a video on the regs as well, and so far, I like the regs. Ooh, there was one thing came out of the regs though in my video.
Sure.
I don't know if you saw it, but I think unless I'm being a smooth brain, which happens, I think
Okay.
maybe you might have missed M slice DNF. I think it looks like you can get away with an M slice DNF in your reg, so you might, but I might be wrong. So that's something
Okay.
to look at.
Yeah. So okay. So when I was writing those regs, a lot of things were going through my head. I guess I'll go on this little tangent. So, did I miss that? Not necessarily, is what I'll say. I was thinking of how I wanted these regs to be written, and I decided that I was going to allow M slice plus twos.
Oh snap! Okay, Dylan Miller will be over the moon. He was campaigning for this in my chat when I was looking at those regs. So that's
Wait, is
intentional.
he? He didn't even talk to me about that.
No, he.
I didn't realize he was looking at that.
Well,
Okay.
he was in my chat when I was reading through the regs on my live stream last week.
Okay. First off, I should quickly answer this. It's a hot topic, and it's like a controversial decision. For me, there's two driving factors. One, first off, I think brewers, I think they deserve a little bit more. Just shine in the spotlight. I think that's a really good way to engage them. That's one thing. So that's like a tertiary like reason. Um, and secondly, more importantly, when I was originally writing the regulations, I was actually the person that was not going to allow misalignment penalties at all. So basically, there was going to be DNFs across the board. If you misaligned, it was a DNF.
So you were going to skip +2 and just go straight to DNF. Is that what you're saying?
For those cases, yeah. Essentially, because the cube is not solved. But one, I was talked off the ledge. So if you're ever curious if I'm willing to take feedback, yes, I'm always willing to take feedback. But two is just, I thought, you know, I wrote that reg in the future and thinking to myself, like, okay, what if I did need to reopen that conversation about misalignments for like big, grandiose events? Let's say there's a grand finals happening and there's a misalignment. Is a non-cuber going to get really confused by that? And really having a consistent way to deal with layer misalignments in terms of how it is perceived would make it a really consistent regulation to change if I were to go everything's a DNF, it's not solved. So it's sort of leaving the door open to have that conversation. And that's one of the examples I was talking about with like continuous innovation in the space. So fun fact, I was actually not even going to include the 17 seconds as a part of inspection as a +2. If you pass 15, it's a DNF. I was just like, all these like tertiary things are just so confusing even to me. But again, talked off the ledge. There's a lot of things I've been talked off the ledge for.
Yeah,
right?
but are you talking? But when you're talking about being talked off the ledge with these, this is in regard to the PSL specifically. These weren't changes you were trying to make in your WCA tenure.
No, I was not.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm way smarter than that. Like, I think the WCA doesn't need that. So like, I will go on a different tangent after I answer your question. So, and then, yeah, and it was just a lot easier to think about that scenario in the future if I was going to consider a change, if that'd be a good change to make. I think it'd be good for brewers, and yeah, I mean, visually it can be a bit confusing for non-cubers, and part of the demographic we're trying to hit is our non-cubers, and how we're going to digest that. And yeah, that was a just long story short answer on this M slice situation. I also think that at this level, so like at the real level when there's stakes involved, if you +2 any solve, it's game over anyways. It's
Arguably,
really if you arguably if you
in the
DNF a
top 8.
solve,
Yeah.
if you DNF a solve, what ends up happening is the person could take 15 seconds to solve to beat you. This is not exciting. So at the end of the day, if a +2 is still reasonably going to ruin a solve, still allow it to ruin the solve, but not make it to where the other person could just throw to solve and still win. So sort of the fundamental premises on that. Do I think it's a perfect reg? No. Do I think my regs are good? I think it's like severely like underwritten to an extent.
They're very short compared to WCA. If that's all the only thing I've got to compare it to.
Yeah.
But they're concise. Yeah, so they're fairly concise, I thought.
It's an idea. It's an idea that I'm looking to explore, and I figured if there was any time to explore that avenue, this would be a good opportunity to.
Yeah, okay.
But as far as what I was talking about with WCA, the WCA doesn't need to touch this stuff because you've said it best. The WCA is very good at what it does. The way that it's doing things to serve the grassroots community is outstanding. I don't think they need to explore this necessarily because these regulations that I'm writing here are not just for grassroots. It's actually meant for watchability from just a TV perspective. So that's why it's a completely different proposal. And I would never write WCA regs in the effort of watchability because that's not what the WCA is best at.
For sure. Right? It's not what it's for. It's not what it's
for
to achieve.
The WCA would tell you that. I think most of the staff members would tell you that probably. That's why they get a chance to vote on the regulations like head to head. I swear that proposal existed. I'll have to go fact check that.
But essentially what you're saying is that's not a mistake about the M slice DNF. You're suggesting that an M slice in PSL would be a +2, just to be absolutely clear.
It was an Easter egg.
It was an Easter egg. Nice. I found it straight away. I was out here trying to 100% the regs, and I got the Easter egg.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. I'm happy about that. I can't wait to tell Dylan. He'll be stoked. Um, so going back to pricing, because that's where we started, and then we tangented onto regs. But
Sure.
so we talked about the I think fair criticism that it's a little bit confusing, the pricing. I know you have the reasons for it, and you've spoken to that. In terms of value for money, people have suggested that you're paying a good chunk of change for what is potentially one round of 3x3 in the 64 person bracket. And
Mhm.
that connects, for me, that connects to the idea that you've talked about, which is to make these more like conventions. And I know that's a
Mhm.
future goal potentially. And making it just an awesome day for cubers, rather, an awesome day out for cubers, rather than just a competition, maybe with a vendor. Um, but I wondered, just specifically Berkeley in March, right? I forget the exact date.
Yeah.
Specifically that event, what have you got lined up in terms of a convention experience for that? To push back on people who are saying, "Oh, that's not good value for one round of 3x3." What have you got lined up for that one?
Yeah. So I'll talk about the perks, also acknowledging that I think they can be better, and I'm looking for ways to make it better based on what people want. So that's a big caveat there. Again, referring back to the idea of continuous innovation, right? I want to give people stuff that they want. So the first thing is that the booths themselves. So working out the logistics of everything. So we're gonna have our mosaic set, uh, and then we're going to have San Diego will be slightly different. We're gonna have our mosaic set. We're going to have our coffee stand for all of our parents, our hardworking parents who are there.
I've done that before. It goes
Inside
down
each,
so well.
yeah, the coffee stand. It's kind of unbelievable, like how much people need that coffee throughout the day. Obviously, we'll have SES vending there. I think that's a given. So for each of these events, we are bringing a few athletes from all around the United States. It's not only to the United States, but it just so happens it's easiest to reach out to them, right? So we'll have autograph sessions with all of them. So please bring your memorabilia. And then we're also going to have something really cool that I wanted to implement because I thought it'd be a really good way for a memento. So when you walk in from the registration table, at the entrance, you get this long red carpet and the step and repeat banner behind you, and we'll have a professional photographer give you your photo. We're going to upload it for everyone to be able to see. And it's going to be something where it's almost going to feel like it's the Grammys experience, and with all the glitz and glam. And there's going to be I'll explain this a little bit later. The room itself is going to be decorated slightly differently and in a way that goes against WCA standards. For one, lighting. So lighting, it's going to be a dim room, just so everyone is clear.
Dim
It's
room
not
with a
going to be
bright
bright
stage.
sun. Yep. At least that's for the actual main event, but we're going to have like stage lighting throughout the entire event in its entirety. So the way that you walk into the room and you get that red carpet photo taken, it will be similar to like a Grammys experience, a convention experience, just a really good piece of memorabilia for you. Um, and then we're gonna have a creative booth, which will be pretty cool. So it's like an activity booth for a lot of the cubers that are there. We'll be doing some arts and crafts together, some fun activities. And then this is not listed specifically under the tickets themselves as perks, but it's something I wanted to explore in the future because I wasn't able to figure out how to logistically make it work. So if you're in the chat and you're like, I really want to see this happen, like let's do it. But I was trying to figure out a way, as you know, like our high level keepers, they all do coaching services. Right now, I don't have the logistics to set up like maybe a group coaching demo or stuff like that. But really exploring in the future, how can we have some like 1 on 10 like time with athletes and people?
Like
That'd be
live
pretty cool.
masterclasses. That's a good idea. I like that.
Sort of, but I just wasn't able to figure out the logistics of it. And you'll see in the tickets themselves that we didn't list it. But that's as like a big perk because we weren't able to figure out like, do we do this for VIPs only? Do we do this for that? It was just really complicated. And like I said, rushed to the finish line. So we didn't get that out. but that was an avenue we're exploring in the future on how the athletes could further support that. And then finally, of course, you get to compete. But the actual main event, I do not want to understate that this event is meant to be a spectator event. So the way that the Ehang Timon thing is exactly how this is essentially. So what we hope that you go there with your family and just are starstruck, essentially, with the overall experience. Just gonna do the little things too. We're gonna play your favorite music, right? Just like little things like that that would never be allowed in the WCA competition. And again, just decorations off the wazoo. There's going to be projectors on multiple areas. Stuff, you'd be concerned if you had a projector and you saw someone solve and you're like, I'm concerned about the scramble secrecy, like out with that, right? Because each competitor set is going to have their own set of scrambles. That's just how it
Right.
works
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this format. They
Because
don't
you
need
can,
to have the same scrambles.
because you have the freedom to do that in this format. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's really the big thing. And then, of course, the goodie bags. That's where some of the other ticket stuff can explain. We actually did receive our trading cards. So
Now,
we actually have not shared this on social media. Do you want to see it?
hell yeah.
I don't know
Absolutely.
if this is going to show up on the screen.
Yo, there we go. Okay, cool. So who is all on the trading cards? Is it just your invited athletes? Is that it?
Yeah, we're picking specifically people that have agreed to it.
Okay,
And
that
if
makes
you
sense.
were, yeah. And I'm not trying to like
Those are
put,
cool.
I'm not trying to have like incentivize people to like count our staff members' wallets too, stuff like that. But look, I'm just saying, like, the way that I'm approaching this is every single person gets an opportunity to be paid except me, and I'll leave it there. So if you're seeing marketing from an athlete, I probably paid them.
Yeah.
So just like one of the things, like, I'm not doing this for me
Yeah, no, that's
at the
cool.
end of the day. But hopefully, did you see the backside of the trading card?
No,
But it's some pretty fun.
can you hold that up to the camera again, and I'll just adjust where you are on the screen so that the
Yeah,
viewers can definitely see that. There you go.
yeah, it's pretty cool in my opinion.
Can you
But
flick those through to me on Discord? Maybe I can just bring them up on the screen.
oh yeah, for sure.
And we'll do that.
That would be pretty easy way to do that. Are you trying to show the chat live right now?
I was showing them. I was showing them on your screen there. Dylan Jovic just
Oh,
said,
yeah.
"Hey, that's my thumb." Hi, Dylan. Let me just pull these up here. So there we are, everyone. There's that one.
Yeah.
Oh, behave. There we go. I can't zoom into this one, but what if I open a
And
browser?
yeah, like we've never really explored the avenue of trading cards before. So am I an expert on how these work?
I
But
got
no,
close.
not yet. But
I had
that'll be cool.
lots of chats with someone about
Oh, really?
doing them. Yeah, I wanted. It's something I've dreamt about for ages. But
Okay.
it's just get the printing. As I'm sure you found out, the printing is pretty tough. You know, printing.
It's yeah.
Okay, so you've got PB scrambles on the back. Look at that. That's great.
Yeah, it's
Methods,
cool, right?
average TPS, close up of look at that thumb. Nice thumb, Dylan. Very well manicured
I'm
nails.
so sorry, Dylan.
Dylan thumb reveal.
We were gonna post that on social media at some point, but I figured give you and your
Oh my gosh,
dedicated
we're getting the
community this.
exclusives here today. That's great, and there's a little blurb about them as well. Oh, okay, cool. I like that a lot. Because there were
Yeah.
questions. Hey, okay, so people from New Jersey shouting that you should bring it there. And we've now got people flipping completely the other way and saying, can you afford this with your registration fees? So we've gone from it's too expensive to how can you afford
Let
this?
me okay.
Pete,
So
I'm just
first
picking on
off,
you, Peter.
yeah, to answer the first question, if have you gone on their website? If can you do a full screen mode and going on your browser? So go on our website.
Yeah, hold on. I can, but it's gonna just take me a little bit of faffing around here because I'm gonna have to switch. Does everyone like my new transition? By the way, it's pretty cool. Hey, where's that? I want to do this, and I need to select. Bear with me. Premier Speedcubing League. Okay, there we go. Okay, and where am I going? Oh wait, I don't have your audio. Nobody can hear you right now. Is the issue I'm having? Go to the tab and then come back. Which tab? About us. Oh, work with us. Okay, and then I'm coming back to you. Okay, you're back on screen. People can't hear you.
Cool. So if you want to go back on the stream, take a look at that. Work with us. There's a tab up there. Um,
And the
I'm
open.
not making the events happen. Again, there's an organization team that we pay to do it. So, like, just to clarify, like, I can't do it, right? I think that'd be crazy if I could do all of them. That'd be honestly amazing, but I'm not that good. I am very far from that. But yeah, if you want to work with us, that's where we post all our up to date stuff. We're actually like when we expand, like PSL staff, things like that will be posted there as well. Um, and then yeah, and that sort of ties into the LinkedIn project too. So the reason why there's a LinkedIn for the PSL is because if we're going to fulfill our vision in connecting to third-party sponsors that are not cubers, we're going to have to figure out a way to build a presence on LinkedIn because that will probably be the most reasonable avenue to do so, while also showcasing our product. So that's the whole reason and like the whole structure behind like working with the PSL. There's contracted workers, there's people in PSL staff, and then connecting that to LinkedIn because we'll need to have a LinkedIn space when the time comes to work with non-cubing partners, if that were to ever happen. But I'm laying down the framework.
Okay. Um. Okay. Let me just gather myself here. Where did we start? We started on value and asking
Yeah,
what is actually happening at Berkeley,
yeah.
which I think we've covered. Um, one final one on price is the idea, and you've just actually segued expertly into this. So thanks, good on you for that. Finally on price, is it always going to be the idea to get most of your revenue from charging competitors, or in an ideal world, does a future budget have a huge part of it paid by sponsors? And then following on from that, sponsor cash, where would you put that immediately? Would that go into prize money to make it more higher stakes, do you think, or would you try and subsidize tickets with sponsor money? Like, what would be your plan if you got sponsor money?
Yeah, that's a good question because one, we don't know what that money looks like. So I think that's the first thing to acknowledge. But secondly, do I hope for this to be as expensive as it is? Of course not. Like, of course not. Like, I think that's like the farthest thing from what I want. What I will say is if we were to get sponsor money, and let's say I'm gonna try and make this an exercise because I haven't thought about this super clearly because it's just so far away. So let's do a live exercise together on a day in a life of what Chai is thinking about. Let's say a sponsor provides us $100,000 for the name like rights to this project. It's the PSL presented by Cheetos.
Cheetos.
I know Cheetos is a really bad analogy
No, run with it.
because
Run with it.
your hands, yeah, because your hands get so sticky. But
I,
okay, so
I
Cheetos
would
gave us
take any
$100,000.
money or any product that Cheetos would give me. Flaming hot Cheetos. Just give me them. If you're watching Cheetos, send me some
What I
flaming
would
hot Cheetos.
say it's in the value of like importance of like who's coming to like do like great work for the PSL. So the first thing is I want to figure out a way to divvy up. Let's say I'm gonna just divvy up into like a fifth. Again, this is a live exercise. I have no idea. Let's say 20,000 of that like goes towards like the cash prize pool for like a few events. So like that could be divvied up into like 3 or 4 different events. So like maybe 5 or 6 thousand each, for example. That might be able to subsidize some upfront costs. So like maybe another $20,000 could be split across some of our open events. So 6 of those open events and splitting it like 4,000 each would subsidize a lot of money. That's a lot of money in this budget model. Another $20,000. Um, People in the back. I don't know if you want to cheer or boo me for this, but another $20,000 for this would go towards the organization team.
Yeah, pay your people.
Uh,
Yeah, I no, I back that. But
yeah. So the organization people, and probably the other like $20,000. I'm just dividing it into fifths. Would be the PSL staff, excluding me, and then probably another $20,000 would probably go toward the last 20,000 would go towards funding a new invitational project, probably because invitationals are just inherently so much more expensive. And then the model of inviting all these people and hoping people like pay tickets just to go watch, that's a scary model. And like kudos to the cubicle for doing that, because it's a really hard concept to grasp, and we don't know if people are going to do it. We have belief that people are interested in the premium experience, but we don't know if it's going to happen. So I would probably like put it there. Hopefully that's a really good like exercise of what I would do with the sponsor money, if I had to like really divvy it up. um but like when I say like $20,000 for like a new like invitational, it could be $20,000 for like a new format experience, I don't know, like, or new new side project, new event, better broadcast. I don't know. There's like a lot of ways to go about it.
Yeah.
Um, but
Questions just come in
yeah,
the chat is just about funding again. Is West Coast Queuing WCC, is that funding PSL since you're the CEO of both?
no, the WCC is not sponsoring it right now.
No, it's saying is it funding
Um,
it?
no, no funding, no sponsor.
All right, there you are, Peter. That's pretty clear. Okay. Great. That all makes sense. Um, to me, anyway.
Oh, WCC did send out a mailing list invitation, not by my request. So mailing lists do cost like subscriptions per month. So they sent out a. There was one guy in WCC who was really excited about the PSL project, and he was very forthcoming. Sending out a mailing list invitation or whatever it is. Like,
So he sent an
you know
email
what I'm
out.
talking about?
He sent an email to the
Yeah.
list. He didn't give you the list.
No, I don't
Okay.
have the list. I mean, I probably have access to the list, but it wasn't me.
Yeah.
So very
That
grateful of it,
that would
but that was
be,
something they decided to do on their own.
yeah, yeah. No, that would be super sketch to take a list from one org and take it over to another. That would be
No, I
sketch.
don't have I don't have it on me. Do I technically have access to it? I probably do. But if you ask the people that are running WCC, they're running it. I'm just sort of incubant. So this is actually a fun fact. What people don't know is, first off, there's nothing for me to share with the odd. Like, no one's watching me. But essentially, like, I'm getting ready to resign at WCC at some point. I've actually set up WCC to where they run without me. So I'm just figuring out that process. Don't really know what it looks like yet. Looking for like successor, right? So, but they have a well-oiled machine. Like, for example, the SCS deal, I didn't broker that deal. I was not involved in it at all. Like, it was like they did their thing. So
Yeah.
I just happened to just still be listed, I guess is the idea.
Yeah, okay. Um
Mm-hmm.
do we need to talk, I don't know if we need to talk about it being results being unofficial or anything. I think because we've now talked a little bit more about the idea of you looking at things which would not be compatible with WCA regs, like for example the M slice plus 2. Um, I think it would probably be a harder job unless your regs are exactly aligned to get your results recognized. And well, actually, you know what? Do you have thoughts about whether
I don't think, yeah,
PSL should be
I don't
official?
think that's not necessarily true. It could still be recognized as official by the WCA.
Oh, okay.
I think, as like a separate, like, what if you told me like the WCA, could the WCA have two different sections of the database? You could say like, yeah, for sure, right? Like, there's no reason why they can't. So you don't necessarily have to have one set of regulations for two sets of databases too. So I think that's like one thing to keep in mind. Like, I think if the WCA wants to own it, they can, essentially. Um, and I'm not talking about specifically the PSL. I'm talking about different exploratory items that are considered official results. They could explore that, because all they have to do is say like the WCA acknowledges it, and then people will like go try to get those results.
Do you think that would
So
help
there's nothing
in
stopping them.
do you think that would help in marketing it to our community, to cubers? Do you think that would make a huge difference? Because
I can't say. Yeah, I'm not too sure. That's a good question. That's a question you think about when you're on the board, really. Like it's like what would the world of cubers want? Not like what would the audience want. That's a difference in question, right? It's way harder to answer the question. Like what would the world of cubers want? And I think it'd be a pretty even 50-50 split. Um, and I think where you'll start to see the split come around is once the WCA like might consider building stuff that are specifically maybe towards like a more elite audience. The WCA could be misperceived, so they should not be perceived as, but they might be perceived as elitist, especially considering that all the money that they get comes from like maybe a lot of third world or second world countries, or even in like first world countries, registration fees, people's hard-earned dollars, then they're all going towards the top, right? So that's maybe, as you can tell, when people, they hear that model, they don't react very kindly to it, as we previously explored. Um, so because it's going to be a service that doesn't directly benefit them, um, I think it'd be a lot harder. It'd be pretty challenging to do that within the WCA structure. I'm not saying it's impossible. You would have to have a lot of conviction that it's the right thing to do.
Right. Um, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. I think we've gone a little bit sideways on that one, but yeah, I see what you're saying. It kind of comes back to a point which is like WCA is good at what it does. Keep doing that, please, and just let's have someone else doing the elitist stuff. That's fine. Like
Yeah,
GAN did. You know what I mean? Like
it's
GAN's was
hard.
elitist. GAN SSL was
I
elitist,
think,
but
yeah,
it was
if you
great.
talk to any staff member, usually staff members will like, if you ask them like, hey, how like flexible is the WCA, and they'll generally say like they're not very flexible at change. There's an entire process to change that's just filled with debate, conversation, bureaucracy, and it's just, it's not conducive to innovative formats or innovative like results. It can be done. It would have to start straight from the top, and in the same way that I'm receiving criticism, I think the WCA would have to as well. You just sort of have to like be prepared for that, but you just have to be convicted that it's the right thing to do.
Mm.
Like I think they could do it, which is even why that they should be given an opportunity to do it, right? But I'm not saying it comes with it's without thorns. I
Yeah.
think you have to be confident that this is the right thing to do,
Yeah, and
and
it's
I'm
about
confident.
whether you're focused on your comp coming up tomorrow or cubing in 5 years, because those are two very
Yeah,
different things.
yeah.
Prosta in the chat saying that wasn't super clear. Cubing community versus audience. What's the distinction between the two? I feel like cubing community is cubers and the audience is non-cubers watching cubing. Is that as simple as that?
Correct. Not keeping the audience is basically non-cubers and cubers that are looking for entertainment, such as yourself. You're looking for entertainment.
Yeah, right. Um, yeah, I think I probably fall into both categories there.
You
Hey,
probably fall into both.
yeah. Another big one is,
Yeah.
and I hope I'm quoting this correctly. Wah
Sure.
wah wah. Why is it only 3x3? Wah wah wah. What about triangles? What about three blind? What about other events? What about my event? What about my event? Michael Chai. What about my event?
Yeah. I
So
I can I can just go. Yeah.
go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead. It's on. It's 3x3 only currently.
Okay.
And some
So
people are sad.
that's interesting. Um, I don't think I said anywhere it was 3x3 only into perpetuity. So hopefully that answers the question in like a very quick way for people, but I'll elaborate. So that was your answer. If you want to put the timestamp, no, it's not going to be the only event we ever do.
This season one is only 3x3. That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I learned a new term from someone that I know, and that term is called MVP, minimum
Minimum
viable
viable
product.
product, boys and girls, friends beyond the binary. Write that one down. So
So
the
if
reason I'm
you've
flying to
yeah.
Auckland tomorrow is because I teach a business course, and MVP is literally one of the parts of the course.
Oh no way. Okay.
So
So
there we go.
minimum viable product. So the reason why it's 3x3 only right now is because we need a minimum viable product, and we're proof of concepting it on the fly. We're trying to fly the plane and fix it at the same time, right? And is it possible? Yes. But the more variables you add to it, the more complex it gets. And really, we want a well structured event and then elaborate that and bridge that gap to something else that is really, really going to benefit the broader mainstream space. And people who know me personally, they know that I have opinions about spectator friendly events. So, the way that we would expand if we had a minimum viable product, which is what I'm hoping we get after season one, is if our logistics work, then we introduce spectator friendly events. So in order, not in order. It's my personal spectator friendly order is 4x4 and 3 blind. That's my personal list. Everyone has their own list.
No 2x2. I thought you would have gone. See, I would have thought you would have gone sprint events, but maybe you've thought about that.
2x2. Well, look, I'm not saying my word is. First off, it's my list. So if you're listening on this and you're like, "That's a crazy list," like, yeah, it's probably a crazy list. If I were to try to pick the objectively best thing for cubers to connect with mainstream, it would probably be 3 blind. And I've thought about this a lot. I feel pretty convicted that that's the case, even if it's not my favorite event to watch aside from 3x3. So again, innovation in this space is always likely to happen. I just need a minimum viable product for people that, are hoping to see more at launch. I think the best way that I want to phrase it is I hope I've answered enough questions for people to understand that I am truly going to try and do what's best for cubing.
Yeah.
It's probably the best way to phrase it. I'm not as silly as to say 3x3 is the only one that generates money. Therefore, 3x3 is the only one that's going to stay. Am I going to have 17 events? No. I'll answer that question out the gate. Am I going to have 9? Probably not. Once I sort of like get out of like the once we start filling out our logistical capacity with like events, we'll probably like start exploring stuff like teams and stuff like that. That's a very intriguing concept.
Teams.
Don't know how that would work. I would never know how to write those, like write the regulations, write the format. I have no idea where to start. But
teams is cool.
I think in order for the mainstream audience to capture the appeal, this is what I think is the direction. And I think people resonate with that. If you don't resonate with it, let me know. I'm open to expanding on events, and if there's some feedback you want to give, go for it. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you know James McDermott personally?
I do. I've never met him in person, but James taught me a lot on Megaminx actually.
Oh, really?
So he's a good friend of mine.
No, he's in the chat going blind, extremely based. he's on board with that because he's a big blind solver. Obviously.
Yeah, maybe now's the right time to like go back a little bit and just say like I know like at the announcement people were like disappointed and they made preconceived notions that it was 3x3 only. Amongst other things.
I was like, just about to say also everything else.
Once you saw like the cubicle prices and you're like, oh, this makes total sense now, right? Like it's just about everything. I'm not saying I think the prices need a rework. I think it's just genuinely confusing, but you understand that like, oh, there's a real logic behind this. There's a real person behind the scenes that's trying to do what's best. And I'm never going to be like the first person to be like, hey, like, I'm the best person in the world. I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I just hope that people see what I'm doing is I'm trying to bring a service to cubers.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like we've touched on that.
So James, hopefully you got that message. I know James is big into blind.
Yeah. And apologies, I was giggling just at the start of this kind of section because Hoppy Brandon came in with the idea of just the most straight written comment I've ever seen. He just said, "What about head-to-head FMC?" And I was just dying a little bit, just laughing at that.
Okay, I will. Oh, okay. So this is to tell you
you're not considering that. You're not considering that,
bro. Okay, so WCC is doing their own thing, and I've given because oh my god, because Manu was spearheading this, and I told
Manu, what have you done, Manu?
And I was like, Manu, why is WCC doing FMC live? Why?
What?
Right? And I'm just like, Manu, please, for the love of Jesus Christ, like, And look, I get it. There's a really really base population that wants to watch it.
For
Just doesn't fit
sure.
my needs personally. I was giving him, if I thought this was like the worst thing, that I would have stopped the project. But firstly, again, I want to clarify. This is proof that I'm not dictating anything about WCC, but just the project in itself just sounds so silly to me. Um, at least I would never explore head-to-head FMC live in PSL. A speed FMC, if we had Bluetooth cubes, would be a real option.
Someone just joined in actually. Dylan just said Dylan Jovic with the beautiful thumb. Linear FMC with a speed chess clock is pretty sick. I've never seen that.
Yeah, Speed FMC. Speed FMC is pretty lit. So basically, the way Speed FMC works is uh, every move you do is like, think about it exactly like a chess move, and you want to have enough time and more time than your opponent on the clock and solve the cube in as least move as possible. Something like that. That is linear FMC.
Okay.
That would be pretty based, but it would require Bluetooth cube technology implementation for that to work.
Okay. That's not
Yeah,
impossible. We've
but
got
yeah.
pretty good ones these days.
No, it's not impossible, but I think if I did that before three blind, I would probably get crucified.
Yeah, I think, and that's probably fair.
Yeah.
um, Charles Davis has just jumped in. This is a good clarifying point. You say "I" often when talking about what PSL has done and plans to do, but you only got involved in late January. Can you clarify how PSL operations are divvied up among teams versus being your call? Because you don't have a board at the moment, right? You're not the founder, but you are the CEO. So essentially, it's a pyramid structure
Yeah.
like that, right? It's just you at the top.
So it's as convoluted as it sounds because it's a we're rushing like to figure things out, right? So long story short, the reason why Tyson is looking for like a partner in this project is not so much a partner. Tyson has a real life of like, he actually like owns his own businesses, got a family. He can't actually run the event operationally speaking. Like, he would actually serve as a board member in this scenario, but he is the founder. So coming up with the ideas, setting up the infrastructure, and then asking someone to take the mantle of the vision. Essentially, that's where the WCA. That's where I came in. That's the long story short. So a lot of these ideas were cooking in the meantime, right? Conversations were happening, and I was taking over that. As in right now, I took over the mantle in doing all the decision making processes for the PSL and executing his vision of like a high level speedkeeping league. As far as what the PSL staff team does, so basically we have a web developer, we have software, we have marketing manager, and we have our athlete ambassadors. Um, Very small team, but that's pretty much it. But you'll notice, like, in all of those sectors, I do have the final say in those. So that's pretty much it. That's the involvement of it. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I answered that question. Is that Did I
Well, let's
answer the
go back to it.
question?
Can you
I
clarify
need
how
to go back to it.
PSL operations are divvied up among teams versus being your call? I think what Charles is asking is just like, do you have just
Oh,
carte blanche
oh,
to change the regs or to change the rules or to change anything like that? Or do you have a feedback
oh, got it,
process?
got it, got it. So we're figuring out the feedback process. So for example, we do have like our contact us section. I think like even on YouTube comments and even CF, like there's good feedback loops in there. As we grow, we'll have like a more structured way of getting feedback. I think that'll be really good. Um, yes. I mean, yeah, basically I can make changes on a whim. That's a benefit and a curse. Because if you change things too quickly, you start to see like, what is this? Right? Like if you just change things every day, like if I made a regulations 1.1 tomorrow, you'd be like, what is that? Right? But if I made a regulations 1.1 in like 6, 7 months after reaching out, maybe a Google form to dedicated people who are interested in the PSL, or just random like what's it called? Just scoping out like little sections of the community and asking their opinions, then that would be more well-rounded conversation. Yes, basically any project I can like have final say on it, but I'm not in the interest of changing things tomorrow. I'm interested in changing things that I think are right for the cubers after feedback has been given. So, if the pricing model is like something that really, really sucks, especially after like all of these conversations that people have been asking me, then yeah, I'll look into changing it, like stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So it's still
Does that
as
clarify it?
I
I feel
think
like I'm
so.
missing the question.
No, I feel like the answer you've given, how are PSL operations divvied up among the teams? I suppose that's asking what teams there are, but you explained that earlier on. Um, not to go back over old ground too much. Um, it's a work in progress in terms of like, I guess you're gonna go and test out, um, um, what,
Oh,
yeah,
there is
test
one
out things.
thing I forgot. I think maybe what's unclear is that we're in the process, because again, this is still we're in the process of incorporating as a nonprofit. So if you're curious, like who's over my head in terms of like why am I making decisions, the idea is that there is a board of directors and Tyson's a part of that oversees that. So maybe that helps clarify the question, but it takes a minute to set up,
Is the board
more than a minute,
established yet? Is there a
unfortunately.
board, or is that being put in
I
place as part of the process?
I think that might be a I think that might be a best answered by Tyson question. But I mean, obviously, I think if the whole board was selected by me, I don't know if that's actually a good idea.
Usually not. No,
I'm trying to think about that in my head.
that's a Tyson
But
job.
like I said, we're literally figuring that out, and it's not a quick process.
I need to chase down this Tyson guy and have a chat. That's what we need to do.
I don't know. I mean, he's a busy man. I can
I've
barely get
heard
to
he's
him sometimes.
hard to pin down. Um, okay,
Yeah.
I've only got one question left, really, which we'll use to wrap up pretty soon. But a couple of a clarifying statement come through from Charles here. Bear with me. And this is fair,
Sure,
I
sure.
think. I suppose I would add that I'm skeptical of Michael's accomplishments when he only got into the mix in late January. If he did, congrats. But I would like to see more focus on giving credit to the team. I suppose, yeah, seeing the team's names and stuff. Do we have that on the website yet?
So
Like who we are?
the So this is actually a conversation that I've had with like the team members, and they're basically of the same agreement. Um, Actually, the only reason that I'm having like conversations like online is mainly because I think it's people want to hear questions answered directly from me. For example, I don't think it would hit people the same way if Dylan Govich, he's doing web development for us. He actually is the first person that posted on our blog.
I was just
So
looking at that right
that's
this
actually,
second, actually. Dylan G, there he is.
yeah.
February the
So
3rd.
I think if he answered these questions, first off, I think people would be like, well, where's Chai? Because they feel like there's this ever like looming being beyond that that's just is too good to talk to people. So that's the first thing. And secondly, it's part of our marketing strategy. So after questions are clarified and answered, we're going to go towards we're going to double down on our marketing strategy. Our marketing strategy is having our athletes market to PSL. The only reason I'm online in any space is because I know people want to hear things directly from me, and I think that's valid. But the trailers, the way that they're written, is first off a little vague by design, and secondly, for the athletes by the athletes by design.
Okay.
The way that the PSL staff are going to be involved and appreciated for their work right now is I've actually incentivized them, and they don't have to. It's really up to them. But like I said, we're building our staff network on LinkedIn. So actually, if you check LinkedIn, like people who are involved in the PSL are essentially like in that organization loop of the PSL LinkedIn page. So that's how we're going about working with PSL staff, and it's just basically a marketing thing. I think at the end of the day, do people want to hear from us aside from our heads are being called, right? Is a bigger question. I don't think the only reason I'm appearing online is because I think people want to hear exactly what's happening. After this, I'm gonna just continue doing my work. We'll probably do like once a month town halls. Then yeah, you'll hear from PSL staff probably. But as far as like the marketing products and stuff like that, I you'll see mostly athletes,
Yeah,
not
right.
not me or not any of the PSL staff.
I think to answer Charles's point a little bit, I think me as a consumer being able to see Dylan, I'm giving you some work here. Given the seeing headshots of the staff or something like that, just to bring some
Hmm.
So you can humanize the people behind the project is not always a bad idea. That might be
Do you like
nice.
that? Is that something that you want to
I
see
mean,
too?
personally, yes, but whether
Hmm.
I'm representative of the masses is it's generally good practice over here. And any board I've been on, my face has always been there on the website. It's just like our staff, our board, whatever. And
Hmm.
there's a face and a little blurb next to someone. That might go some way because at the moment, just again, I don't know. I'm not a web developer. I'm just looking at the website going, there's no humans on here. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. I'll tell you my thought process, and if you disagree with this, everyone who's listening, post live stream or after, go to contact us at PSL. Just tell me that that's what you want to see, because it's not that big a deal. I was just thinking about it from like entity approach. So for example, like if you pay attention to the NBA, no one cares who's the marketing manager for the NBA. They care about LeBron James. That's
Well,
it.
yes,
Like, yeah.
but that's a big difference
But
between something
yeah,
completely established and something brand new, I
right,
suppose.
right. So that was the idea. So if that's not something that people like, if they want to see us, like this was the concept, like people don't care who we are. They just want to see the product. But if they do want to see us, then like, yeah, I can't see why we can't just have a about us page with all the PSL staff.
The
Can't
argument that
hurt,
they
right?
don't want to see you, I think, is much more valid once the product is established. But because you're coming into a community that is change resistant, to put it bluntly, um,
Hmm.
and
I
skeptical,
guess that's fair.
I think maybe humanizing it a little bit would be an idea. But I don't know. I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. I don't know. Do whatever. But
Dylan, if
it's
you're
just
listening, if you're listening, let's have a chat later. Maybe if they don't mind, I'm sure it's fine. That's interesting.
there's a couple of people in the
Yeah,
chat kind of on board with that as well. But actually, I think you've just answered the. Oh no, no, you've segued again. You've done it perfectly. You've segued
I
into
did.
the
Okay,
last
there we
question,
go.
which is really the marketing strategy itself. I'm interested in this kind of stuff, but the
Oh
the
man,
marketing strategy was to drip feed and build the hype. On given the gift of
yes,
hindsight, Michael Chai,
sure.
was that the right strategy? Given our
Uh,
skeptical, change resistant community in parts, not everyone, not my chat. Obviously, they're great and can't do anything wrong.
um, no regrets. I don't think. I think it was for me. I'm not saying it was the right thing to do, but it's a thing that I wanted to do, and I think it made the most sense. Really, most importantly, um, I understand if people didn't have the full picture at first, but I was not ever going to hold it against someone for crucifying me, even if they didn't have all the information. So I think that's a really key point here. And slowly sharing more information, I think is really important to continue the conversation of what the PSO will ultimately be. Because you only have one launch, right? And really, what we're hoping for is people talk about the PSL and talk about it in a sense like, I wish the PSL did this. I wish the PSL did that. I love that the PSL is doing this. I love that the PSL is doing that. And having a really energetic approach to it. And a lot of that has to do with we got to keep the PSL, in the news cycle a little bit. It's especially when we don't have competitions. If we're only going to have 6 competitions a year, we don't expect people to travel from the East Coast to the West Coast to go attend, right? So if you're living in the East Coast, you'll get one a year tops, right? So like we want people to consistently talk about it and talk about what they want to see from it. Um, so drawing out that conversation for me, I think is a really good thing to do. Having everything drop all at once, sometimes I also think is a little overwhelming. Too much information.
Yeah.
Let's slowly bring it in. I wanted people to read the code of conduct first. I mean, the easiest way to do it is to just drop the code of conduct,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, I don't have any regrets on it. I think if you ask 10 people how they would launch this product, you would get 10 different answers.
Of
So this is
course.
just
Yeah.
one of the 10, right? So I guess this is, I, I felt like it was the right thing to do. And yeah,
I like that you've started all these conversations. What I liked was the backing up the launch with the two big interviews. I thought that was cool. Not a lot. Not
there's
everyone.
more.
Not
Like
everyone
I've,
watched
I've
those.
done recordings, by the way. Yeah, I've done recordings, so like there will be more questions and more um, journalistic integrity episodes like this one. Like at the end of the day, like I know people have questions. No
Yeah.
matter how much information I gave them, they would be asking questions because I'm involved.
Yeah, no, for sure. The I'm
Mhm.
personally as a slot monkey, as a purveyor of fine cubing slop, I'm enjoying the gradual release of information because each one of them is a new video I can make. So, thanks for that.
Okay, I'll be straight too. Like the I felt like it would just be good for content creators. Like I thought it would be good. I know, like, dude, I know Cubehead is bored out of his mind. Like, for example, like I know Cubehead is bored. I know you're bored. That's why you're doing slop. I know, Speedcubing TV is bored. Clicky is bored. StewCube is bored. Everyone's bored. Like, what is cubing these days? Like in 2025, you're not going to see a cube review of the Fanshin yada yada 2027 stuff like that. Everyone's just bored. There's nothing to talk about. And I was also cognizant that this would actually be a fun thing for content creators to talk about.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it becomes that. I mean, like I'm quite keen to yap about it. I'm quite keen to see where it goes. I'm excited to see what happens. Like I say, I've been yelling into the void for a while about I want something better than this, and that's in terms of content and in terms of competition.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked to have it here, and I guess I've got to. I feel like I'm obliged to back anyone trying something new because I've yelled and screamed from the rooftops for so long. And finally,
Yeah.
yeah, let's just wrap up on that kind of idea actually, because it is really interesting where we are in terms of being able to watch head to head cubing content on YouTube. There's a lot going
Mm-hmm.
on. There's
Mm-hmm.
in a post Monkey League world, you know what I mean? We've got the guys doing the collegiate cubing, which I actually
Yeah.
watched a
Yeah.
match
Yeah.
of. I watched one of their matches I've been meaning to for ages, and I watched a match yesterday. I can't remember who. I don't know anything about American unis, but it was great. It was so close. It was the people were solving like 10, 12 seconds, something like that. And but it was really exciting, and there was almost a really huge upset. And it's like, yes, this is why the format is good. This is why the head-to-head best of is so exciting.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
it's wild. We've got that. We've got another one going on here in Oceania right now, which is the Oceanic 2x2 kind of contest as well. I know that there's another one brewing in the background that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but there is another one coming out, which is gonna be pretty big, I reckon. I don't know when yet, and I'm not going to say anything more about it, but there is a lot of cubing available to watch in an exciting format. Also, Mayor Nick's got the world's contract as well, so I am genuinely I'm not often excited for a WCA live stream because it almost always is difficult for me to navigate around just in terms of time zones and life and everything like that. When's this event going to be on? Oh, okay. Calculate the time zone, put it in my diary. It's just a little bit of a faff, and then
Yeah.
the format itself is hard to watch. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what they're going to do with that because I feel like they're building up to something huge. But it's an exciting time here. There's a lot of cubing around.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot of cubing. I just think it's a very pleasant coincidence, and it's probably not a coincidence. I think people want to see more. The only thing is people want to see more done in a way that they think works, right? And
Yeah,
that's why we're seeing all these ideas, and and that's okay. um for me, a lot of where my conviction lies, the reason why it's the right time to watch cubing online, on TV, on YouTube, is we have all the personnel to do it. And right now, what a lot of people don't realize is, to quote you, your young Timmies, right? The young Timmies of the world that are inspired to cube. Um, they come to the WCA. They compete. They learn. They love cubing for all eternity. And then you ask them like, "Who's your hero?" They probably have an answer. And their heroes like these days probably gonna be Timon, right? I think Yihang might still be too up and coming to be like a hero to like young kids yet. Max Park for a long time was one of them. Felix is one of them still for a lot of OG cubers. The free service. that these guys have given to cubing is priceless. The amount of work that they've done in cubing, eat, sleep, cube, repeat. Timon literally cubing for 16 hours a day when he was like 10 years old, all for free. To never see a single benefit from the cubing community outside of his sponsor, that's an outlandish, egregious disservice. And what they have done to grow the sport has been insurmountable, unquantifiable. And what my job is how can I bring it back to them? That's really the objective. Yeah, I don't think people realize that the community only exists because we have heroes we look up to. Early on, it was the Eric Eckerstykes, right? It was the Felix Zemdegs. It was probably the Kevin Hayes. Nowadays, I think cubing has sort of exploded to where that's not necessary, but that's where cubing came from. That's where the roots came from. So my job is to figure out how to thank these people for their hard work.
I hear you. There's I think cubing is to an extent growing up a little bit, and the process of growing up is always a bit painful and a bit awkward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's in its late adolescence now, I feel like, or maybe it's mid adolescence. I don't know, but cubing is like it's having growing pains, I think, to build on your
analogy. I think so. You're right. Yeah.
But you know, it's got good, like, I don't know, the analogy's going to fall apart, but it's got good, strong role models, you know, who are helping it through this phase, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an exciting time. Speaking of the time, I've got to be somewhere in 28 minutes. So we're going to have to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Show some love in the chat for Michael Chai. Thank you for taking on the slightly tougher questions. I felt like you were getting softballed, you know, in Speedcubing TV and on Manny's channel as well, and that's fair enough. But I think there'd been.
I was hoping. I was trying to tell him, like, ask me anything. Like, ask me anything. Don't prompt me. Don't do anything. Just ask me anything. And yeah, you're probably right. Like, you know, at the end of the day, I think hard questions are deserved. By the way, this was a very interesting correlation to like the Joe Rogan podcast. And I was thinking about it. We should do it in person at some point.
That would be. I would love to at some point have a little. I mean, I daydream about. I mean, I'm a father of two young kids. They're 7 and 10. You know what I mean? Like me hopping over to America is not super easy.
Yeah.
It's difficult for me to get that past my wife. You know, I'm going to have to really work hard to get that one across the line. Otherwise, they'll have to come with me, and then it's not going to happen very often. But yeah, I would love to. It would be really nice to be able to like do dumb stuff like just pop out to Worlds and just chat to people or whatever, you know, or go to a PSL event and just yap to people. Who knows? It depends. Just subscribe to my channel so I can get all that sweet ad money, and then I can buy plane tickets.
Pay to be a member, guys.
Yeah, there you go.
Support Mike, man. Support Mike.
Become an official
podcast here.
Well, thank you very much.
Become an official Timmy.
I appreciate that very much. Right, we're gonna wrap it up, Michael. I'm gonna boop you off the screen, and then I'm gonna run the outro. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us in the chat today. I'm going to press the end button now, and I'm going to go and have a boring meeting with someone. And then later I'm going to catch a plane. All right. What are you guys doing today? Actually, I don't care because I'm about to end the stream and I won't be able to hear your answers. All right. Love your work, everyone. Bye.